Tonight I'm going to talk about the Judiciary Committee, the most powerful committee in the US Congress. It's one that oversees the FBI and the Justice Department. How it's supposed to work is the FBI is supposed to catch the bad guys and the Justice Department is supposed to prosecute them, and the Judiciary Committee oversees that process and keeps an eye on things. Has that been working out pretty well for America recently? So a lot of people ask me, they say, why all these communists in government? Why are pro-Chinese communists, Black Lives Matter running riot on the streets? Why are Chinese spies going unmolested? Why isn't the FBI doing something about these people? Well, I'm going to explain why today. Well, partly it's because the FBI itself has been co-opted, but they are overseen by the Judiciary Committee. The Judiciary Committee is basically their boss in some ways. It is the committee that they look to for guidance, sets their budget, etc. So the Judiciary Committee. Now, for many years, that was headed by a man called John Conyers from Michigan. He was in Congress from the 60s to 2017. When he left in a bit of a Me Too type scandal. He was the man who abolished your House Un-American Activities Committee back in the 70s, one of your last lines of internal defense against the Soviets and other communist operators.
The Democratic caucus, in a secret meeting, abolished the House Internal Security Committee. They cut their funding out of the budget. A deal was made between the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Rodino, Democrat of New Jersey, and John Conyers, who's as one of the senior members, with the Republican minority, that they would take the function of the House Internal Security Committee and move them into the House Judiciary Committee as a subcommittee. Unfortunately for everyone, Rodino lied, Conyers lied, and they totally destroyed the internal security functions of the House and never reconstituted any kind of internal security committee. As Conyers grew in seniority on the House Judiciary Committee, he gained oversight on FBI operations and funding, which was very crucial.
John Conyers was a member of Democratic Socialists of America. He was at their founding conference. That's a Marxist organization. He was a long-time Communist Party USA supporter for more than 50 years. He would have, speak at events like the Labor Research Association, etc., which was a Communist Party front. He worked with them for decades. He was also heavily involved in the World Peace Council, which was one of the Soviet Union's main international communist fronts. He also worked to protect the Muslim Brotherhood in America. Now, the Muslim Brotherhood were a secret society that started out in Egypt in the 1920s with the goal of spreading Islam worldwide. Well, a socialist version of Islam. And they worked with the Nazis in World War II. They worked with the Soviet KGB. And when some Republican congressman tried to get the Muslim Brotherhood designated as a terrorist organization in this country, it is the father of Hamas, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS, well, John Conyers pushed back. He tried to stop that. He did play a role in stopping that initiative.
Several Republican congressmen are working to officially designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization.
H.R. 3892 simply asks the State Department to do what it should have done long ago: recognize the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization that threatens the United States.
Since we already know that the Muslim Brotherhood is the parent of Hamas, and that these organizations are overtly supporting Hamas and other like-minded organizations around the world, then we should shut those organizations down. And that would send a shockwave throughout the pro-Sharia, pro-Jihad Islamic world without firing a single shot or dropping a bomb anywhere in the world.
I want to urge all of you on both sides of the aisle to join me in opposing H.R. 3892. Since swearing off violence in the 1950s, the Brotherhood has become a predominantly non-religious or a non-violent religious, political and social service organization.
John Conyers was a hardcore anti-American Marxist-Leninist, yet he was chairman of the Judiciary Committee for decades. And when the Democrats weren't in power, which they were through most of his career in the Congress, he was the ranking Democrat, the top man on the committee. Another one who served on the Judiciary Committee until very recently was Luis Gutierrez of Illinois. He was a former member of the Puerto Rican Socialist Party, a pro-Cuban Marxist-Leninist organization. He worked very closely in Chicago with the Freedom Road Socialist Organization and the League of Revolutionary Struggle, both of which were pro-Chinese communist organizations. He was a supporter of convicted Puerto Rican terrorist Jose E. Lopez and also another terrorist, Oscar Lopez Rivera. He worked very closely with Democratic Socialists of America leaders Jose La Luz and Eliseo Medina on immigration issues. He had another DSA Marxist, Carlos Rosa, on his staff. Carlos Rosa now serves on the Chicago City Council, one of 5 or 6 DSA comrades on that body. In 2016, Gutierrez and 4 other Democrats were in the Middle East where they met with Shawan Jabarin, who is allegedly a leader of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. That is a Marxist-Leninist organization designated as a terrorist organization by the US State Department. In 1985, Jabarin was jailed for recruiting terrorists and sending terrorists for training. Another one who was on the Judiciary Committee till very recently was Judy Chu from California. She was a long-time supporter of the Communist Workers' Party, the most militant pro-Chinese Communist Party of the 1980s. She still works with former Communist Workers' Party people today, including California Labor Union official Kent Wong and former Mayor of Oakland, Jean Quan. Judy Chu visits China regularly. She's on very close terms with the Chinese Communist Party. She was also involved with the Committee of 100, which is one of the Chinese Communist Party's main influence operations in the United States. It's used for targeting businesses and politicians and moving them in the direction that China would like. She regularly attacks the Federal Bureau of Investigation when they have the temerity to arrest one of the more than 25,000 Chinese spies working in the country. And she also works with NARCOSEC, an organization founded by pro-North Korean Marxists. So she's pretty hardcore left. Now, the current head of the Judiciary Committee, that's Jerry Nadler of New York, the man who tried to impeach President Trump twice. Now, Jerry Nadler is a long-time member or supporter of Democratic Socialists of America. This is a Marxist organization. He was involved in its predecessor organization, the Democratic Socialist Organizing Committee, since at least 1977. He was actively involved in Democratic Socialists of America in the 1980s. He was still attending Democratic Socialists of America organized conferences well into the 2000s, working with them. He's still on the board of a DSA front, the National Jobs for All Coalition. So he's very heavily in the Marxist camp. During the Clinton era, Jerry Nadler got Bill Clinton to pardon a woman called Susan Rosenberg from jail. She was serving a 58-year jail sentence for possession of explosives. She was part of the Weather Underground terrorist movement and the May 19 communist movement. Very heavy terrorist. And Jerry Nadler got her out of jail. She is now serving on the board of 1,000 Currents, which is effectively the fundraising wing of Black Lives Matter. So when the FBI was going out there in 2020 trying to track down these Black Lives Matter rioters, and they didn't catch a lot of them, I gotta say, they were basically out there trying to track down the friends of their boss. They were trying to track down people that Jerry Nadler was friendly with. Jerry Nadler also tried to get a pardon for a woman called Judith Clark, another Weather Underground terrorist who was in jail for accessory to murder. She was a getaway driver in a terrorist attack on an armored car that left 2 policemen and 1 armored car guard dead. So this is the kind of people that Jerry Nadler supports. Now, also serving on the Judiciary Committee right now is a man called Eric Swalwell from California. Now, Swalwell has been in the news a little bit lately because he also serves on the Intelligence Committee. But about 5 or 6 years ago, when he was first running for Congress, he was a city councillor in Dublin, Northern California, a little town in the Bay Area. And he met a woman called Christine Fang.